Welcome to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm your coach. Yeah, your coach and your host, Mackenzie Brooks, taking you through the hour with all of the best picks for Week 3 of college football. And I am not doing it alone. I have the best in the business with me to come along this journey. So let's bring in the stars of the show, Mike McClure, Tom Casale, and Emory Hunt. Gentlemen, we got a big week, okay? We have some bigger marquee matchups. Georgia, Tennessee, go Dogs. We got Florida going to LSU, Baton Rouge. We got Georgia Tech, Clemson. A lot of fun things to talk about. But before we get there, I want to unpack the weekend prior, a little week 2. Let's talk some shop, talk some ball. Let's talk about Michigan, who goes on the road, loses to Oklahoma, falls 8 spots in that AP poll there, which you hate to see. Love to see it for our guy John Mateer moving his way up the Heisman odds. Emory, is there any cause for concern for this Michigan team that now falls to 1-1 on the season?
Not at all. It's week 3. They have a tough loss against a team that looks to be a very good one this year in Oklahoma. You talked about John Mateer. How about that defense and how well they played so far this season? And when you look at Michigan, you're playing with a true freshman quarterback, albeit a talented one. I think they're going to have to open up the playbook a little bit more, so allow him to be that quarterback that you want to be. So I'm not too worried about Michigan right now falling this far. They'll climb themselves right back up with another big win.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, a true freshman here. Even talents like Trevor Lawrence weren't starting this early in the season. I think there's a lot of time left for him and for him to recover. Tom, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I'm not down on Michigan. I thought coming into the season they would probably be just on the outside looking in for the playoff, only because they do have a true freshman quarterback who's very good. But I think next year, that's going to be Michigan's year. I think they're going to open up as one of the title favorites. They're still going to have a good defense. Underwood will be starting his second season. So, listen, that's a tough place to go and play. It's Oklahoma on the road for your first start. So I'm not down on Michigan at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think they're in title contending odds right now, but they are plus 490 right now to make the playoffs, Mike. Obviously, they'd still have a favorable schedule, in my opinion, relative. But do you think they're going to take advantage of that, Mike? Maybe make a shot for the playoff?
Yeah, look, I'm not ready to give up on a playoff run this season. I just don't think there's any reason to go bet it right now, right? Win or lose the next few games, you win, it's not changing much. You lose, it's completely over. So I wouldn't rush to go bet that number yet. I do think that, as Emory kind of alluded to, I think we'll see the training wheels sort of taken off of Underwood very soon. Let him open that playbook up just a little more. Frankly, I thought they played relatively well in the third quarter of that game, made some adjustments out of the locker room. It was really just that slow start in the first half. The fact that they still got Haynes rushing for over 100 yards, to me, they're not far off. They have a favorable schedule. The next 3 weeks are critical, particularly that matchup with USC. So when you talk about at Nebraska, Wisconsin, then at USC, USC is a team that's always been high-flying offensively, not necessarily a great defense, but you still have to go score 30-plus points to beat them. That's the matchup that I've got circled. If they take care of business there, I think that they've still got a shot.
Yeah, that's a problem. I think Nebraska is definitely going to be the game you keep your eye on here to maybe get some true colors from Underwood. Also, shout out the CBS Sports HQ college football pregame show. We will be boots on ground for that game in Nebraska. Going to be very exciting there. Let's move on to the ACC. Clemson losing to Troy 16-3 at the half. There was a point I was sitting in a bar on Saturday and I saw UF down and Clemson down at the half, and it was really interesting sight. Nonetheless, Clemson still plus 200, the favorites to win the ACC. Miami just behind them, basically the same at plus 250. But then you start to look at the field here. Now, Miami looked good against Notre Dame, and Clemson obviously, made it work. But does anybody feeling like they want to still put their money on them, or do you want to go with the field? Tom, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I still lean Clemson or Miami to probably win this conference. But, you're looking at Florida State plus 650 there. They play both of these teams. So if they split, they're probably in the title game. And that's kind of what you're looking for, if you want to take somebody further down the board. Can they get to the title game? And I think, listen, Florida State had a cupcake last week, but they've looked good these first 2 weeks. We'll see what they have coming up. But at plus 650, I think they might be worth a shot right now.
Yeah, Emory, I'm taking a little look here, and they have Georgia Tech this weekend. Do you think Georgia Tech and Haynes King can maybe take this game, but maybe take it a step further come the ACC Conference Championship?
I've been standing 10 toes down, Mackenzie.
It's true.
In the
It's true. Hand up. It's
Georgia
true.
Tech. Exactly. 10 toes down in the underground about Georgia Tech and Haynes King being better than Cade Klubnik as well. So, yes, I like Georgia Tech to win the ACC. This was the game I had circled because my assumption was Clemson was going to take care of business against LSU, entering this game with a lot of hype, and here comes that rambling wreck 1940s Dick Tracy car riding on the field with a big yellow jacket and beating the brakes off Clemson. I do like Haynes King. He didn't play last week, but hey, he should be back ready to go for this particular game. This is where Haynes King can shine and steal some of that luster off of Cade Klubnik. I love Georgia Tech in this spot. Big fan of Brent Key in big game situations. One of the more battle-tested teams in America. So, yes, take the plus 1,000 for Georgia Tech. Put something on that for them to win the ACC because their schedule, there's no Florida State, there's no SMU, there's no Miami. If they win this ball game, they have an easy ride to the ACC title game.
Exactly. 3.5-point dogs at home this weekend versus Clemson. Mike, I take it you are probably on the other side of this game and eventually the conference championship.
You know, I lean Clemson to win the game, yes. I think they ultimately find a way. And if they do, the schedule sets up in an extremely favorable way for Clemson to just simply be in that title game. Whereas I'm not sure who the other representative would be, again, under the assumption that Clemson gets the job done against Georgia Tech. Because when you look at what Miami and Florida State both have to go through still, I'm not confident which one of those two is coming out. So it would be a pretty comfortable Clemson lean at that point. Now, I have some major concerns about Clemson offensively, and some of those concerns may actually trickle over to my concern with LSU at times. How good is LSU really? Because Clemson has looked awful on offense. Now, this is a big game that they can certainly get up for. It's Georgia Tech's Super Bowl. It's their college football playoff, if you will. I think it's going to be a tight, competitive game. If Georgia Tech wins it, I would be backing them to win the ACC at pretty much any number at that point. But I will be on Clemson here still. I think they should be a deserving favorite.
All right, there's a chance we do the show next week and we have Mike on the Georgia Tech train, which would be super fun. Talking more about that game later, certainly in the hour. Let's take a look at Illinois because they moved to top 10 in the AP poll here. Now their odds to make or to win the Big Ten are still pretty long, 30-1 here, plus 590 to make the playoff. Tough situation because you look at their schedule and there are definitely some tough games in a short amount of time, stretch in weeks here. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Was this more about Duke not being good at football or was this an Illinois situation? Tom, I'll start with you.
Yeah, listen, I took Illinois plus 590 to make the college football playoff this summer, and the game I was worried about was Duke. Because if they get past that, then there's two scenarios they have to make the playoff. One is just losing to Ohio State at home. The other is a close loss to Ohio State and another close Big Ten loss on the road. Then they're in the conversation. So I do like this team. Listen, the Duke game was close in the third quarter, and then they just started playing sloppy. So I don't think it's more about Duke. I think this Illinois team is experienced. It's good on both fronts. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State. But I think they're a very good team that has an outside shot of making the playoff.
All right. So still maybe a sprinkle on that plus 590. Mike, are you having any hope in this Illinois team?
Look, I mean, I think they have a better shot of sneaking in the college football playoff somehow than they do of winning the Big Ten game, right? So I think that they would be a massive underdog in the title game. Just looking at some of the ratings here, looking at the top teams, against Oregon or Ohio State, they're likely sitting as a 13-point underdog in that game. In other situations, I could make them down as low as 11 or 10, but still a clear underdog, great team, or I'd say good team. Incredible schedule the rest of the way, so there's a path, but massive underdog, would not be willing to back it at this point.
All right, Emory, I ask you the same question.
I am still on the fence. I like the way they're playing. I'll learn a lot more about Illinois in this ball game against Western Michigan because you have the following game is a ranked opponent, Big Ten opponent in Indiana. Can they get caught slipping against Western Michigan? We'll see. If they come out and blow the doors off Western Michigan like they did the previous two opponents, I'm going to be all in on the Illini. Wake up the Red Grange, the Juice Williams, the Simi Rice. Wake all those guys up, and let's go play some ball.
All right. Yep, we might be all riding the Tom Casale Illinois train, and I give it to him. He's been on it since the summer. All right, coming up next, we're going to give out some picks, and if you want all of the picks from our experts, you can go to SportsLine, where you can get 60% off our annual plan using the promo code WINNERS. That is 60% off at sportsline.com/join. Coming up, it is time to talk some of these marquee matchups. We got some ACC games. We got some SEC games. We got to get into the weeds. props, totals, sides, all coming up next here on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. I'm Mackenzie Brooks, joined by Tom Casale, Mike McClure, Emory Hunt, here to give you some of the best bets of the weekend. We're going to start with some of these marquee matchups, some of the bigger high-profile games. Starting with the game we've kind of already touched on, Clemson headed to Georgia Tech, 3.5-point road favorites in this game, over-under sitting at 54.5. Now, we saw basically load management with Haynes King last week. We saw him rest in that Week 2 game, so he comes in essentially well rested. I guess that's the point of load management here. Emory, do we like that for him? Does it make you like Georgia Tech even more?
This is great for Georgia Tech. It's great for Haynes King. It's great for my agenda. All of it is coming up money because when you look at Georgia Tech, let's go back to their game against Colorado. Think about how awful they had in their first quarter, whatnot, with those turnovers, and they still hung around and found a way to win the ball game. That's the mark of a good team. You look at what they do well. They win along both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's where football starts, and that's where Georgia Tech thrives. And in Clemson, when it comes down to who can play above the X's and O's, we've seen Haynes King do this multiple times in high-leverage games across multiple seasons. We still haven't seen it consistently from McCade Klubnik. So I think this is all Georgia Tech. Like Mike alluded to earlier, this is their Super Bowl. Georgia Tech wins this ball game. No one will want to face the Yellow Jackets down the stretch.
I'm with you. I'm going to take it with the first half money line here, around plus 125, especially the way Clemson has started out the games thus far. And even them going back to last season on the road, it has seemed to be some slow starts that they have to get themselves out of in the second half here. Like that our boy Haynes King is rested as well, but I think I'm going to leave myself and my bets in the first half here. Tom, Mike, I know you guys are both attacking some totals here, so Mike, I'll start with you.
Give me the first half under, Kens. This number's sitting at 27.5. And just have to think logically here. Like, are we getting 4 first half touchdowns? I don't think so. So if we're not getting 4 first half touchdowns, it's 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals required to beat us. That's 6 scoring drives needed to beat us if you don't think we're getting 4 opening half touchdowns. The way Clemson plays, they play very conservative, particularly early in games, and oftentimes find themselves having to get to desperation situations in the second half. I just think we get a slower mover with these two teams that are knowing the importance of this game. I mean, for a team like Clemson, it's a must-win game. And for Georgia Tech, they win this game. They're right there in the conversation. For me, it's low scoring early, under 27.5 in the first half.
I knew I wanted to isolate that first half, and the first half under was almost my play here, so I love that. Tom, you're confident in this full game under?
Yeah, I agree with everything Mike just said about the game plan. You know, I think Brett Key, Emory mentioned the turnovers against Colorado. That's the one thing you don't want to do early, right? You don't, the way Clemson's offense is playing right now, you don't want to turn the ball over. So I think he'll take his shots, but I also think he's going to run the ball. He's going to try to shorten this game, get it into the fourth quarter. And listen, we've seen 2 games, and I haven't seen anything from this Clemson offense. Do they just turn it on all of a sudden? I don't know. We'll see. But 54.5, I think this is going to be a tight, lower scoring game. I'll go with the under.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think this might be an uglier game. Very curious to see how Georgia Tech handles this and Haynes King, because we knew what they did just around, I think it was around Thanksgiving last year against Georgia in Athens. We know they are quite alive against any higher competition. Let's move on from this. Talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, who are on the road going to Knoxville. Now, they're 3.5-point favorites right now, and we're all here shaking our heads because this opened around 7.5. And they've also, go Dogs, eaten this rivalry for breakfast the past 8 years. They've won these games by double digit or more. I'm even looking back, 7.5-point favorites last year, 9.5, 10.5, 19.5-point favorites in 2021, and they've covered all of them. So I know these aren't the same teams, but it is crazy to see how much money is backing Tennessee. So, I ask you, Mike, do you feel like it's a bit of an overreaction to the Tennessee side here?
I do, Kens, and it really is all about the numbers that we've crossed, right? You talk about 7.5. Like, do I agree with moving it down to 7 or 6.5? Yes, I do. I think the line could have settled at 6 potentially, but the fact that you're talking about crossing 7 and then 6 and then 4 and 4.5, that's a huge, huge move here. Yes, Tennessee scored 72 points against an opponent that really doesn't belong on the field with them at that point. They love to run it up with the high-flying offense. Georgia put 28 points on the board and absolutely nothing on tape. Kirby Smart, if you know anything about the man, is not putting anything on tape ahead of a matchup like this. I'm not worried at all for the Georgia side. I think it's a big overreaction. Love the 3.5 here.
Yeah, and listen, you look at both of those quarterbacks there, Aguilar and Stockton. Like, it's not like any of them have played. For Stockton, this is probably his first massive road start. Obviously, he's played in some of those neutral sites here, but he's been in the system for so long, it doesn't seem to concern me. Tom, do you agree? Do you feel like he'll be okay here in Knoxville?
Oh, I do. And, I'm with Mike. I thought the 7.5 was the right number. Then it went down. It kept going down. And I kept saying, well, Georgia going to go back up. And it never did. So 3.5, I got to jump on the Bulldogs here. And listen, I think Kirby's been playing possum. The Georgia fans are all upset. Gunnar Stockton doesn't throw passes over 2 yards. Listen, they went out in the transfer portal and they got all these shiny new weapons at receiver. Why would he showcase them in the first 2 games when he can sleepwalk through those opponents? I think you're going to see a much different game plan. You're going to see Georgia be more aggressive on defense. I actually think they blow Tennessee out.
Let's go. You guys got me pumped up for this game. Emory, tell me you agree with the team. Is it a go Dogs?
Last week when I saw that score with Austin P, and first of all, I put out a fantastic FCS top 25 power rankings every week on CBSSports.com. Be sure to go check that out. I'm like, well, Austin P beat the brakes off of Middle Tennessee State, and they're in a tight game with Georgia. Maybe we're underestimating Austin P. They might be the best team in FCS, right? So let's throw that game out the window. Georgia, to me, is a very good, solid defensive football team, and that's what you need to take on a team like Tennessee. And I know earlier in the week, I'm going to say this right now because I know people will be in the comments going, oh, how can you take this side and this side? Earlier in the week, I saw this line. I was on the show. I saw this line at -6.5. I was like, oh, give me Tennessee plus the points. This will be a very close game because Aguilar is playing better, like his 2023 version, than what we saw from him last year. But now this number is at 3.5. Give me Georgia. I think Georgia wins this ball game around that number, a 4 number. So I like this for Georgia. I think Gunnar Stockton is a gamer. He has big game experience. We saw that last year in the postseason. So I can trust him in this spot. I can definitely trust that Georgia defense.
Let's go. So glad to hear we're all on the same page for this game. We have a few more games to get through and give out some best bets as well coming up on the other side, including a game you thought maybe was going to be a top 25 matchup before Florida just really let South Florida do it to them. We got LSU, Florida, we got Texas A&M, Notre Dame, major playoff implications on the line there. All coming up with our best bets next after the break. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show here, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. The crew is back. We are making our way through the hour, giving you our best bets, starting with some of these marquee matchups. Let's move to Florida, going to number 3, LSU. Now, you can find this line around 8.5, some 7.5s out there. Over-under sitting at 54.5. It feels like a lot of the people in America want to have the comeback revenge spot for Florida because this was around 9.5. Does anyone agree with this 8.5 here, maybe backing Florida? Mike, I'll start with you.
I do. Look, I would put the game at 7 or 7.5. At 8.5, there are just many scenarios to essentially backdoor covering or just being right there hanging around. Look, this is a big rivalry game. It's a huge game really for both squads, particularly the coaching staff on the side of Florida and then LSU for national title aspirations. When you look at this spot, though, it's the best environment in college football. It's Baton Rouge at night, Death Valley. It literally doesn't get better when it's a rivalry spot. I just think this thing gets a little bit more competitive. Florida is a team that's kind of easy to rag on. They've had, a tough stretch, but they've also had very difficult schedules. I think they're a little closer here, and I think LSU may be. I'm not so sure how great they are offensively and defensively, frankly. after what we saw from Clemson the last week. So give me the points here with the Gators.
Yeah, that's fair. Tom, are you going to agree with Mike here?
Yeah, listen, the two games we're talking about in this segment, I think are two of the toughest to handicap with the number this week. Yeah, 9.5, I was a little interested. I wanted to see where the line went. It's down to 8.5. This is what I'll say. I think Florida is going to play a competitive game this week. I thought they looked awful. With all due respect to South Florida, I think Florida lost that game. And I do think you'll see a better effort from them. And I am with Mike. Like we thought, I do think Blake Baker in his second season, LSU's defense is improved, but how much improved? We might have overreacted to that week 1 game against Clemson. So I think it's going to be competitive. I'll take the 8.5.
Yeah, that's fair. They're also getting one of their best defenders back here this weekend. I will say the interesting thing about this game is that the Gators haven't won in Baton Rouge since 2016. And you're looking at Garrett Nussmeier on the screen here, favorite to win the Heisman right now. You saw Jaden Daniels and you saw Joe Burrow both have basically their Heisman securing games against Florida, which is very interesting that we find ourselves, obviously it's week 3, but in a similar situation here he could find himself in. Emory, do you think this is going to be a big Garrett Nussmeier shootout type of game?
It's fascinating to watch folks try to squint and make themselves see Heisman and first-round pick with Garrett Nussmeier. It's just phenomenal to me. Like, absolutely not, man. This LSU defense is legit. The issue is their offense, outside of their run game, struggles to find consistency throwing the football. Florida comes into this matchup with confidence of, hey, we beat these guys last year, albeit different situations. They had better receivers last year than they do this year. I'm talking about LSU. And so, yeah, the defense is better. That's why we saw that La Tech game look the way it looked last week. La Tech was the best defense in Conference USA, so that's why that offense had some issues. Offensively speaking for Florida, it's about Lagway finding his consistency. This was a game last year in which he broke out and played really well, got them the upset. So I like this going under more than anything. Welcome to the Adventures of Bayou Billy. That's a Nintendo video game reference, right? But you look at what they do when they're backed up against the wall. I've seen this from Billy Napier. I have faith in him. I have faith in him getting his team ready to go. So with my Raging Cajuns, and we'll see it in this ball game with the Florida Gators. I like the under more than anything.
On the note of Garrett Nussmeier Heisman, he has 2 passing touchdowns. Like, he's not on pace. Not even
He's
a
not
little
the best
bit
quarterback
on
in
pace.
the SEC. We'll get to the best quarterback in the SEC later on in the show.
I hear you. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you have to hit that like 40 plus passing plus rushing touchdown threshold, at least 35 passing if you're Garrett Nussmeier, who doesn't really use his feet as much. So I find it odd. I mean, he'll literally have to put up 4 passing touchdowns against Florida to get back on pace in my eyes for this award. But conversation for a different time. I honestly lean more towards the LSU side. I think what we saw in that USF game was Lagway legitimately looking bad and not healthy and bad coaching problems. And I don't know if you just turn that around automatically in a game like this. If you shop around for a 7.5, I would definitely prefer that. But not a game I'm all too excited about betting on. Let's move on to number 16, Texas A&M, headed to number 8, Notre Dame. Now, last year, it was week 1 of the season, we saw this, where Notre Dame, they're 4-2 overall against Texas A&M, but they won that game 23-13 last year at Texas A&M. It was 6-6 at the half, if anyone remembers that. Emory, where do you see this going this year?
I open up the paper report and I look at the backfield for both of these teams. Notre Dame won't forget to run the football in this ball game, so we should see the backfield depth be exploited once again. Texas A&M goes 4 deep in the backfield, so I think this is going to be a run game and defense type of a ball game, the type of Texas A&M Notre Dame game we grew up watching in those Cotton Bowl matchups. So I'm liking the under over everything in this ball game because Notre Dame forgot to run the football against Miami. They won't forget it in this ball game, and A&M comes in ready to run the football with 4 backs that can legitimately tote the rock.
Yeah, this feels like it could be an ugly trenches game here. Tom, what's your best play on the game?
Yeah, this one's really depends on the number. If it's under 7, I like Notre Dame. Over 7, I could lean A&M here. I do like Notre Dame overall as a team. They played that tough game against Miami, so I think C.J. Carr now playing his second tough game here at home. I think he's going to be a lot better. So I do think Notre Dame is going to win this game. Listen, I don't play many teasers, but I know the people like them. So if you want to tease Notre Dame down, that might be the way to go in this game. I do think the number's right on, but lean the Irish.
Yeah, this is, again, like you were mentioning, Tom, like these two games are tough. I was having a hard time with this. Maybe you do want to buy the number as well. I ultimately landed on, it's a little counterintuitive because I could see this being a low-scoring game, but I went with Notre Dame team total over 27.5, and this kind of takes like I'm a data analytics type of person, but a team like Notre Dame are always looking for style points. Like they're always trying to make their case for the playoff, for the at-large bid. So I wouldn't be shocked if they just want to run up a score, even if they have the chance to. And in these big games in the past, especially last season, outside of the Texas A&M game, they were putting up 30-plus points. So I wouldn't be shocked if still in that fourth quarter they're trying to put up some touchdowns. Mike, I know you don't want to go into the fourth quarter. We're going back to your roots here. What's the play for the first half?
Kens, I don't want any part of this game, to be honest with you. I want to watch it as a fan. I think the number is dead on. So where I'm leaning is going to be the first half with Texas A&M with the points. These two teams, this is a must-win game for both sides. This is a playoff eliminator for Notre Dame, and it's a playoff. If they win this game, if Texas A&M wins it, there's a path to Texas A&M dropping the last game to Texas and having another loss along the way in the SEC and still getting in. That is what's critical to me. You look at the upcoming schedule here. Yeah, they got to go to LSU likely at night in October. That's going to be tough, but like they could lose that game on the road at LSU and at Texas, and they're getting in the college football playoff if they take care of everything else, right? So must-win game on both sides. Excellent coaching staffs. Neither one of them is going to lose the game in the first half. Marcel Reed is the difference, though. The way that he is kind of that one-man show, you can get away with that for a half of football. You can't for 4 quarters. That's where Notre Dame pulls away potentially here. Give me the 3.5 in the first half.
Yeah, this is one of those bigger college football playoff implications for sure, because you could see Notre Dame start the season 0-2, and they literally have to win out the rest of the way. And it was interesting. It was slight, but even this weekend, without them even playing a snap of football, you saw their playoff odds just slowly decrease just from the way the other teams in the ACC were playing or the Big Ten. Like, they are so affected because they're an at-large bid by everybody else. So it's fascinating to see. Obviously, you do not want to start the season 0-2. You got USC coming up. You got at Pittsburgh, which is never a walk in the park, at Arkansas. So definitely going to be a must-win game because it is a must situation to be 10-2 for this team to make the playoff. Very interested to see how that one goes. All right, we're going to get to our best bets coming up here next. And I know I've been making you guys pick some of these bigger, flashier games, but I want to know, even if it's disgusting, even if it's sicko mode, we're going to get into our best bets here coming up after the break. We'll hit the recap, and then we're going to move on. That's what we do here. We look at the recap, and we move on to Week 3. This is the Early Edge College Football Pick Show on CBS Sports Network. We'll see you after the break. We are back on the Early Edge College Football Pick Show, heading into the best bets, but we must take a look in the past to move forward. 1-1 from Emory, 1-1 from Tom, 0-4 from Mike last week. Overall, this isn't our best showing, but you know what? We start the season like this. It literally can't get worse from here. And to be fair, all of these gentlemen right here on the SportsLine website are going above 500 week in and week out. You can only pick so many for this show. So take that for what you will. Make sure you're following all their picks and getting on them early on sportsline.com as well. But we're going to give this another go, boys. I'm going to start with you, Emory. I see you're backing the hot hand. Give us your first best bet here.
South Florida came and beat the doors off of Boise State. Then it was like, okay, maybe Boise State is down. Then they came into Gainesville and beat Florida soundly. So now, and it was a 17.5-point spread then. Now they come to Miami with a 17.5-point spread. People need to understand, especially in college football, that belief is everything. We saw this last year with Vanderbilt. We saw it in 95 with Northwestern. We see this all the time with some of these college football teams that are perennial underdogs. And South Florida has a quarterback in Byron Brown that's playing really well. Confidence. Point of attack, confidence. Miami, still some questions for me about their quarterback in Carson Beck. I know people were raving about the slightly underthrown deep ball he had against Bethune-Cookman last weekend, but I am not buying the juice. I like the defense of Miami, and the defense of Miami versus the defense of South Florida. I think that screams very close contested game. South Florida knows They have to win this matchup because they potentially represent the G5 in the CFP.
I like how you're giving us a nice big underdog here. And Emory, I'm going to have you give your second pick because we're balancing our sheet here. We're going to take a heavy dog and we're going to take a heavy favorite. What's our other play here?
Oregon looks legitimately like a juggernaut, and the way they handled Montana State said a lot to me because that's an elite FCS program. Then they come back and blow out Oklahoma State. You would have thought at some point Oklahoma State would punch back. Nope, just laid down, just kept getting kicked in the face. So 66 points they scored against Oklahoma State. Now they play Northwestern, and listen, I just brought up Northwestern in '95. This ain't that team. And their star tailback Cam Porter was on crutches the last time I saw him in that ball game. So they will cover this 27.5 point spread. They are looking focused. They look like a team that's trying to run through everybody on this schedule. Sorry, Northwestern. Sorry, Chicago. Thanks for the trip. But they're about to beat the brakes off you as well.
Yeah, I like that. That's an interesting play, Emory. No doubt Oregon's looking good. And Mackenzie, I hate to do this to you. I know you're a huge Georgia fan, and I'm 9-4 this college football season, and 3 of those 4 losses I've given here. But I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldogs -3.5. This is the way I look at Georgia. Was last year an aberration? They've gone on the road and they've hammered these teams for the last few years in the SEC. If Georgia loses this game, maybe Georgia isn't Georgia anymore because this is a great spot for them. Syracuse is terrible, so I don't care that Tennessee beat Syracuse at home. I mean, their head coach has them running sprints after wins now. They're so bad. So this is a perfect spot for Georgia to come in, hasn't played anybody, and just blast the heck out of what I think is an average Tennessee team. So Georgia's my one pick. And then when the lines came out, Duke was 4.5, plus 4.5 against Tulane. I gave that out right away. I said I couldn't believe my eyes. I had to check to make sure 5 guys weren't injured for Duke. Now it's down to 1.5. I make Duke the favorite in this game. That game against Illinois was close with 12 minutes to go in the third quarter, and then a couple of turnovers, a sloppy play. That final score is a little bit misleading. I still think Duke is a good football team. Darian Mensah is going to go back to Tulane. That's going to be all the talk this week. But the bottom line is, I just don't know what we have in Tulane. They beat a bad Northwestern team, and they gave up 31 points and over 400 yards of offense last week to South Alabama. I think Duke, too strong in the running game, bounces back and beats Tulane.
I agree, Tom. I like Duke in a bounce back spot for Mensa, but I love Georgia. How about Georgia -3.5, guys? Yes, we're bringing the same pick here. It's my favorite of the week here. Look, big overreaction in the market, in my opinion. The game started at 7.5, moving through the very, very key numbers, obviously, of 7 and then 6, and then down through 4 even. So I like Georgia quite a bit here. I think Kirby Smart has not put anything on film. He is a very, very talented coach in these situations. I think that he unleashes the offense a little bit here. We know that the defense will bring the intensity. That is never a question when you talk about a rivalry game. Feeding off the energy in the stadium at Neyland Stadium here. Give me Georgia, and then Kansas State -1.5. Look, the market is incredibly down, and probably for good reason. They have not looked good so far this season. However, Arizona was a matchup for them that they really thrived in a year ago. Avery Johnson absolutely unleashed over 100 yards rushing. This is all the while when they had Tet McMillan going for 136 receiving yards the other way. I think Kansas State gets up for this game. It's a Friday night game. Yes, it's a road test, but sometimes getting out of that environment where they just lost in embarrassing fashion as 17-point home favorites is never a bad thing, in my opinion. The focus will be there. I think they should be a field goal favorite still, so give me Kansas State -1.5.
Mike, you are a brave man for going back to that Kansas State team. That is just disgusting given what's all over the board. Respect your guys' respect for the Georgia Bulldogs. I do now remember, it's coming back to me, that this time last week, everybody was on Michigan plus the 5.5, and we saw how that went. So I honestly hope you guys just keep my team's name out of your mouths based off the way that went. But I really, really, truly do agree with you guys. Like, I even think about Gunnar Stockton just being in this system for so long. Like, I know it's his first big road start, but I just don't think he's going to be that rattled by it by any means. And they don't even have their top 2 cornerbacks. I like what we've seen. I agree. I would not buy into this school playing FCS teams. I've watched it myself for years now. It's never something that they're big into caring about. So I don't know. I'm not on that one. But Emory, I know you agree here with the Georgia Bulldogs, right?
Yeah, listen, when I saw it at 6.5 earlier in the week, I was like, yeah, Tennessee will keep this one close. But we talked about Gunnar Stockton before. Like, everyone kind of wants the quarterback position to look the same way and play the same way. Sometimes guys just play different and win differently. And Gunnar Stockton, to me, is one of those dudes. He's a gamer. We saw this last year. So I'm always fascinated that people are surprised that his numbers are not super gaudy. Like, man, he's just finding ways to win games. That in and of itself is a skill that people need to start realizing.
Absolutely. So if they win this game, Mike, I'm going to ask you, they win this game, they cover the spread. Maybe they win by a touchdown, dare I say, speak that into the universe here. When you look forward to the SEC championship, is it clearly Georgia in there for you?
I'm not ready to say clearly yet, but this goes a long way, right? There's still a number of tough games on this Georgia schedule. It really also depends on what teams like LSU do, frankly. But yes, this game is really, really significant to Georgia. If they were to lose this game, I would be extremely concerned about their chances to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a tough schedule you're looking at. But at least they have these tough games at home, right? You have Alabama at home. You have Ole Miss at home. You have Texas at home. The fact that you have all of these on your schedule, I do believe, is a little bit insane, but at least they are at home. But then you even have to go on the road to Auburn. So even if this is one of the better power-ranked schools, which we do have in our model as well, it is not a cakewalk of a schedule by any means. So very curious to see how this game goes. Again, a ton of games on the schedule with a lot of playoff implications. Before we get into our last block here, let's take a quick recap of the boys' best bets for this weekend. We are in a phenomenal buy low spot for our viewers, okay? This is when you buy in on the team. Emory Hunt with South Florida plus the 17.5 against Carson Beck and Miami. You got Oregon minus the 27.5 as well, just taking care of business week in and week out. Tom and Mike, both on Georgia minus the 3.5. I am pumped, but I am also terrified with all the unison going on this Georgia team. Duke plus the 1.5 as well. And Mike going with his team. Kansas State minus the 1.5. Someone's got to do it, and it's not going to be me. All right. After the break, we're getting into the dogs, okay? Let's get a little bit weird. We got to go plus 150 or longer. This is college football after all. Anything can happen. Let's get the boys' best bets, underdog bets, dog of the week after this. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. We are rounding out the hour with our underdog bets. Now, it has to be plus 150 or greater. And I know some of you saw that recap screen from last week on the best bets. Let it be known that Tom Casale not only hit plus 150 LSU, also hit Mississippi State outright as his underdog as well the past 2 weeks. Okay, so we are making you money. And we're going to talk about some more underdogs here. You boys have plenty of time to sell me on your case with your underdogs. Emory, I'm going to start with you. Yours is very intriguing to me.
But it's also very right, Mackenzie, because you saw the lead in coming off that break. They had America's quarterback, the best quarterback prospect in the NFL draft for 2026, who also happens to be the best quarterback prospect in the SEC, and that's Arkansas's Taylor Green. It's fascinating how these draft analysts, they just trip me out, right? They spend all their time talking about the same 3 quarterbacks, right? They talk about Nussmeier, talk about Beck. Now they finally discovered John Mateer is pretty good. But they left out the dude that has been balling all season long. Week 1 against, yes, Alabama A&M. Taylor Green had 6 touchdown passes and 7 incomplete passes. Also had a rushing score. Last week against Arkansas State, the first time they ever played Arkansas State, by the way, that was shocking to me. He had, 4 touchdown passes, 150-something yards rushing, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He's 6'6", 230, built like Randall Cunningham, plays like Randall Cunningham, plays like Vince Young, plays like Colin Kaepernick, yet no one's talking about it, and no one's talking about this guy's second year in Bobby Petrino's system. The last time we saw an athletic quarterback with tremendous gifts in his second season in Bobby Petrino's system, it was Lamar Jackson. This dude is the future star at the position, got better over last year. Watch these guys go up and down the field against Ole Miss and win this one outright. I got Arkansas plus 225 on the money line. And then we'll see all those draft analysts start to talk about, oh, wow, have you seen Taylor Ring? Yes, I've been here since April telling y'all about this dude last year. Go watch their game against Ole Miss last year. Go watch their game against A&M last year. This dude is box office.
You know, I will say, I've been on some shows with you since the spring, and you have been talking about this guy for months, literally throughout the summer. I really hope somebody from the Arkansas organization is watching this so they can clip this for some hype-up reels, for like some Instagram, TikTok hype-up videos, because I totally can hear your name comparing him to Lamar Jackson and Colin Kaepernick behind him. All right, Tom, let's hear what you got. Not to put the pressure on, but you have hit your dogs the past 2 weeks. And I'm liking this Vanderbilt play because you feel like Sellers is America's princess right now, but you're on the other side of this.
Yeah, if I win one more of these, I'm going to push for one of those recap screens that said that I was 1-3 in my best bets for on the underdog section. But, I was looking at Old Dominion. I think they have a shot this week, but I'm going to take the team that played Virginia Tech last week, and that's Vanderbilt. I bet them last week against Virginia Tech. And, the market was down on Vanderbilt coming into the year. And, I was watching that game, and you know why they're down on it? Vanderbilt is not an analytics type of team. They're a bunch of like 3-star recruits that have a chip on their shoulder that just play to their coach. I mean, they're an interesting team because they're always going to be undervalued. They don't have the talent that some of these other SEC teams do. But I was watching the game and I was like, am I so sure that South Carolina is better than Vanderbilt right now? I mean, South Carolina hasn't looked that good in their first 2 games. I mean, Virginia Tech's not a good football team, and they were lucky to beat them with a punt return late. So, listen, I think this is going to be a tight game, and in tight games, give me Diego Pavia late in the game to make a play. I'll take Vanderbilt to pull the upset at plus 170.
Wow. I believe, Tom, they just call those vibes teams. They're not really into the analytics. They just got a good aura around them. They bring the vibes. And sometimes that is worth betting on here. All right, Mike, let's go back to a game we talked about earlier. We were looking at some unders, but you think there's some value maybe with the dog?
I think there's a little value here. This is also a little bit of a college football fan just simply rooting for chaos, and that would be Texas A&M winning this game at Notre Dame. If Notre Dame drops their 2 ranked games of the year, I think that should put them on the outside looking in of college football playoff. And if Texas A&M wins this game, there is a very strong path for Texas A&M to be a 3-loss SEC team where we know we're going to see 4 of those, and we're going to try and put as many of those as possible in the college football playoff. So I love the drama it creates. I think both of these teams have great coaching staffs. I think that it's going to be a tight game. We're going to see a lot of running the football. I like Marcel Reed, though. I think that he's enough of a challenge that he can really go out and do enough to keep this game competitive, talking about a 1-score game late, and go win a football game. So I like this one here at plus 205. I would have made the number closer to plus 160.
All right. I love it. I love rooting for the chaos here. You know me. Quickly, I'll give out mine. Colorado plus the 190 at Houston. I guess they didn't technically name Ryan Staub the starter, but he does definitely look great for Colorado. It seems like Colorado has a really hard time stopping mobile quarterbacks. I don't foresee that being a big issue with a guy like Connor Wegman here. So I'm not sold on Houston yet after the competition they've played. So might as well take the dog here again, around plus 180, plus 190 you can find there. All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. Let's hit the dogs recap as well before we get out of here. Emory is on Arkansas plus a 225 against Ole Miss. Tom Casale on Vanderbilt upsetting South Carolina. And Mike is on Texas A&M rooting for the chaos plus the 205 against Notre Dame in one of the marquee matchups of the week. And I'm going to give you a little Colorado as well just for kicks. I think they can upset Houston here on the road. All right, that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining the crew. Mackenzie Brooks, Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, Tom Casale. We are back every Wednesday at noon ET. So please find us and find us on the Early Edge every morning at 10 a.m. on the SportsLine YouTube channel, or you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts.